Okay. Let's see. Okay, can you see on the screen? Does it show the assessment now on the screen? Okay. So when you design your wireframe, it's really not possible for you to think that everybody has the same screen size. Now, what does that mean? Well, what that means is you need to consider that your design will be responsive to the size of the screen. Like if they come in with they hit your website with a smartphone, there's a certain layout that you'll have. If they come in with a tablet, it's a larger layout, but it's not the full-blown thing. If they come into your website with a laptop, it's a certain size, and then if they come into your screen with a desktop, it's another size. So you kind of have to think about this concept when you are designing your website. Again, it's called website design, responsive design. I want to show you a little bit what that means with the site of where I work. So, does everybody see the homepage of my company with a woman on it? Is that what you see on the screen right now? Okay. So I want you to pay close attention to the content and see if by changing, I'm going to virtually change the screen size. Now watch what happens. This is as though we were coming in with a smaller screen. Do you see the adjustments that are happening? See, that's all dynamic. Okay, so did everybody see how that design responded to the different sizing of this virtual display? That's a concept called responsive design. I'm going to bring up a graphic here that is helpful to help describe what I'm talking about. And for example, here, it's not helping, but I think you understand a little bit what I'm talking about here. You can see the different sizes here. This would be a better one to go with. So here's a small screen from a smartphone, slightly larger screen for a tablet, larger screen for a laptop, and then larger for a desktop. So in your design, although this assignment is not requiring you to come up with different size designs, I just want you to be fully aware of this challenge to design for different size screens. Now, the way you do that, we're just doing the design this week, but hopefully in week 4, I'll be able to introduce how that is done with HTML code underneath the hood. And the HTML has to do with a a command that you add to your code that dynamically, depending on the size of the screen or the output, it will dynamically do different HTML codes. It would do, display different HTML codes, and that's actually what's happening here. If you've ever used Google Chrome, there's a way for you to go into I think that, let's see, if you do a right click and do view source, that's one thing for you to look at the source, but there is another tool that I forgot how to get to it. It has to do with, this is at View Developer Tools, and then right here, you can toggle the device mode here and dynamically try these different views and the effect of having different size outputs. So the way I got to that was View Developer and Developer Tools, and this is in Google Chrome. View Developer Tools, and it's right up in here. So that's if you're designing a user interface, that's one way where you can use your browser to see what your content will look like. You can test it with these different. You can say, well, what's my website going to look like on a screen that's this big, or what's my website going to look like on a screen that's this big. So one of the statistics that the W3 schools is keeping track of is browser display statistics. I'll copy and put this. If you're designing your website, you need to keep in mind what the size and the resolution of a typical monitor is. As you can see over the years, it's changed. Back 15 years ago, the resolution of the monitor mainly was 800 by 600, but over the years, you can see as the technology advanced, now the average size of the display, and therefore your design, would accommodate a resolution of 1024 by 768. You can see that this is a minimal design. So the design of your web page should at least have resolution of that amount. You wouldn't want it smaller because you're not accommodating most of the people, but as you can see, this is like a scattering of statistics of the resolution of the visitors to their website, and this you can interpolate this to be for websites in general. So when you're designing your web page layout, you keep this resolution in mind. Obviously, some of the this is additional statistics as to what type of browser, mobile browser is, and how often the browsers that are most popular. So browser display, the operating system of the people. When you design your websites, you really have to keep in consideration the customers that are coming to your web page. Are they mainly mobile device users? Are they mainly someone using Safari, for example? All those things will come into play when you are planning out and designing your website. So this web wireframe keeps those things into mind. The wireframe that you use here, let's see, there it is. Keep that in mind, because we would have a certain resolution, the number of pixels across here, the number of pixels here. The horizontal is the pertinent one, because the vertical, obviously, you can scroll down. Sure, you can scroll left and right, but people are in the design of a website are very accustomed to scrolling up and down. And so you normally would have a width dimension. And with those numbers that we were just looking at, the width of, let's say, 900 pixels would definitely fit on a 1024 width pixel screen. So your design ought to be in the neighborhood of 900 pixels wide. The vertical is not so much important, because people would be willing to scroll up and down. So what tool do you think you'll use for this part of the assessment? Some of you may be Adobe Photoshop, some Illustrator. InDesign is also an option here. In passing, I might mention a website that it's not any of those tools. It's design. It's called Balsamic, and this is a tool that some people use for designing websites and the page layout. But I'm not going to go over that. I just wanted to mention that Balsamic is an online tool that allow you to do this designing of a wireframe, and it has a toolbar that allows you to like drag a button over and so on. Yeah, most people are saying InDesign. Can you tell me what class? I should know this, but what particular class is now teaching InDesign? It's not a class that I teach. Did you take a class here at Independence University on that? So Sarah learned that on the job. So in DES 105, you used InDesign. Sarah, I'm interested to know in DES 109. Sarah, when you use InDesign, does it have where you can drag and drop buttons and navigation bars and things like that?
I haven't used InDesign for making any websites or anything, so that I'm not quite sure. I know in Photoshop, you can make websites in it and be able to cut it apart and use it as actual images for buttons and that.
Yeah.
You can actually create the buttons in Illustrator or Photoshop, and then use an Adobe Bridge, you can actually drop it into InDesign.
Okay, and so what I would like to do is there's the CSS3 can even do buttons in it where you're not designing it, but actually is like a dynamic button that gets created. What I'd like to do for this next section of our lecture is to ask if those of you who would like to try out using Illustrator or Photoshop or InDesign, what I like to ask is if you would share your screen, and for those people who are not adept at using those for this task, I'd be interested to know if you could share your screen and show others around how you intend to do this assignment using what InDesign or Illustrator or Photoshop. Can I get any volunteers to share their screen so that so the other students in the class can kind of see how you intend to do this assignment?
So with the wireframe, do we have to have active links as of right now?
No, good question. No.
Okay, so we're just doing an actual, like, almost like a hand drawing only in InDesign or Photoshop or Illustrator.
That's it.
Okay.
That's right. So could you share your screen and show us how you intend to do this in InDesign?
Yeah, I could do that.
All right, I'll stop sharing.
Let me get things closed that I was working on.
And if anybody would also like to prepare to show how they intend to do this assignment in Illustrator, and if I can get a volunteer for Photoshop too, if there's somebody who'd like to try that.
All right, so with InDesign, I just basically opened an 8.5 by 11 document and put 1/4 inch margins around it just so it's not all the way to the edge of the page. For an idea, you could always do with your different sections. So like you could have your, wrong one. You could always have your logo or your banner be up at the top here.
Mm-hmm.
And you can type in what it's going to be. And basically what I would do is do all of your sections in rectangles so you have an idea. So like here you could have your header with your links, whether it's home or contact or your cart, depending on what you're doing. So you could have your home link.
You just did a copy and paste, right?
I did. I think I'm trying to remember the shortcut for pulling one over. I know in Illustrator, I think it's Shift. So you can do your contact. For an example up there, you can have your active links here. So you could do your home, products, I'm trying to remember what all ones we used, blogs, about us would be your links there. For example, here you could have, good night, love you. You could have your welcome here, since this is your home page. And that would give you, since this would stay the same every time, you could have, your description in here with different text all the way down, and possibly, a picture, maybe some captions or something along those lines. That would be your main one. I know I've seen other places have extra links down here. That would be, you could have your blogs down here. You could have any other, hit me on your email list when there's new products that you've put in.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking about these are just ideas if you're doing like a company design where on the bottom you could have like a link for terms of use or copyright.
Right, and that's where I was getting at.
Oh yeah, help.
Yep. Or sitemap, you could put a sitemap down there too, depending on things. Or if you have different websites that you've done personally that are your own, you could put, a link that will open up other links down there as well.
Yep, very good ideas. I like the sitemap idea because a sitemap, although typically when you have a sitemap link from a web page, it's usually an indented list of links, and instead of having a picture of the sitemap, kind of like what we're trying to do, instead a typical sitemap on a website will just have that list of links.
The links, yeah,
which is fine. It's a different way of doing that. Well, that's perfect. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise.
For an example, this is the example of what you want for a wireframe, correct?
That is.
Okay.
Yep, that's perfect. Do we have any other people who want to share what they're going to, what tool they're going to use if it's other than InDesign?
I have a tendency to use a multiple of tools when I design a wireframe.
Okay.
How do I share? Okay. Which one am I sharing? I have 4 screens. I'll use this one. Okay. All right. I do things a little differently. I have a tendency to use a mixture of programs. Generally for me, when I use my buttons, I do a little bit more graphic on the wireframes. InDesign is my general, for the most part, used wireframe. And I set mine up a little differently because I'm setting it up as a web page, and I'll go into File, New Document, and then what I'll do is instead of it being print, I'll set it up for web. But let me do this first. I will go into my preferences, and I will go into my UI increments and units and increments. And I will set it for pixels. Since all websites are designed in a pixel format, you want to make sure that your measurements are set up in pixels. It makes it easier for you to do to fine-tune things, and it's more web orientated. So when I do everything, points, pixels, here it is. So for my ruler units, I will set it up as pixels. This will make it easier for you to see where everything is going to lie in a more accurate instance. I also like to set up my documents in a web-based format instead of print. And what this does, it sets everything automatically up to a pixel size. Most screens are done in 1024 768 size. Most general screens, like I have a 24-inch, so I'm over 1900, but 1024 768 is a good way to go. I leave my margins at 36 pixels. That's how it's generally automatically set up with the web, and I'll click OK. Another thing I like to do is I'll set up automatically. I already have it set up. Is if you come up here in the upper right-hand corner, you'll have a series of presets. So what I like to do is I like to have it interactive for PDFs. It seems to have everything that I want here between my links. I have buttons and forms, hyperlinks, bookmarks, media, help here. I can set it up however I want. What I'll then do is I have my bridge open. And what this does is it allows me to go in and, for instance, right now I have been working on I like to do templates. So I actually been working on a small navigation system here. And it's not ready yet, but it will be, I hope so. So I do everything in my Adobe Photoshop. So if I want to do my button, I know since I have my InDesign set up exactly for pixels, I can come in and most buttons I do are about 10 pixels and long. So let's say I want to do a border. Generally, I'll go, let's see, most sites are 980. I'll go 940 pixels across, and generally a height of 250 is 150 is what I'll do. My resolution is always going to be set for 300. Leave it at RGB. You don't want to do CMYK. CMYK is more for print than web-based, and leave it at 8-bit. I'll just do something real quick. Let's see. Do I have a... Oh, shoot. Caught off guard. Let's see.
Now, mind you, James, you're actually going to save these as actual pictures, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So when he gets when I turn in this work, like say to a client, they have an actual representation inside my creative brief of what each page should look like in real time, instead of it being in a wireframe. And I'm sorry, I should make this. I go, well, my fault, guys. I'm sorry. I generally go and I make everything in real time. So I build it, and then this way here in InDesign, I have a more accurate representation of how I do things. So
Yours is like a mock website, just not an active one for them to view at.
Right. So if I come in, I said, thank you for that one, Sarah. So if I come in, I set up my border here, and I mean, oh no, I'm not having a good day.
I was also going to mention that each web page on your website could have a similar template across the header and the navigation, but the content area would be different and unique to that particular web page. And that's why in the assessment, it talks about creating customized pages for each page of your website. And I'll go over that here in just a minute.
So I'll make it here. I'll just do it real quickly. So this may be the I have drawn a blank. This might be a switchboard, which is an application I like to use to show multiple pictures going across the border. Down over here, I may have my navigational menus here. And
Your switchboard like a running banner.
And this will be my nav menu. And then probably a smaller website. This is not my day. There we go. Come on, flipping machine. Use these probably as picture identifications. These will also be as serves as links. Come on. There we go. Probably have text boxes here. in each one, giving a brief example of the website. Probably have a footer down here, giving additional links. And probably have a sidebar here for additional things as well. Maybe current events will be showing up on this side, blog posts and additions that are here. So let me put in down here. Come on. Oh my God. Footer. Probably a little sidebar here. And the sidebar will contain current blog post. This will be pictures with links.
James, let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
With you making your buttons and all that jazz in Photoshop, doesn't that make lots of different pictures for you to put into your website then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It does. I can, with using Photoshop, if I'll design my navigational menus. For instance, if I wanted to, I can come in Bridge and say drag this. Oh, and I'm gonna make that smaller. Oh, it's not ready to go yet. It is so not ready to go.
But basically, you just drag and drop it into, whether it's Dreamweaver or whatever, already as pictures, and that builds. You're basically building your website in Photoshop, cutting it apart to multiple separate images to put in like Dreamweaver that loads it and builds it back together.
Well, you see, I hard code all of my sites. I do not use Dreamweaver. Never have. I never will. No offense. I mean, I've just always used hard coding. I'm a programmer by trade.
I understand. I learned making websites by writing coding.
Where is my fitting? Oh, it's not letting me do this. Come on. Here we go. Layout object. Fit. Really?
Well, I have put you on the spot, James, and you've come through with shining colors.
Nah, not yet. I'm usually a lot quicker. Let's see, where is it? It's not letting me. There we go. Oh,
right.
Flipping heck.
Okay, so if you're close, if you're close to being where you wanted to be,
yep.
I'll take the screen back. Just let me know.
Yo, I'm ready.
Oh, you good? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. That was awesome. Okay, so here's some more concepts I want to talk about in your page layout. There's a concept called the heat. Does everybody see the heat maps on my screen?
Mm-hmm.
You see that? Okay. And heat maps come into play when you are designing your website. This is research that's gone into the movement of eyes, a person's eyes, as well as the movement of the cursor. And these heat maps here let you know where the eyes of the website visitor, where they are trained to go. Now, obviously, content's going to drive this a little bit, but you can see a trend through these images that upper left across the top tends to be what our culture is accustomed to doing. Now, you might ask the question, what happens if you're creating a website that's going to be visited by people from around the world? You know, do other cultures read from right to left? What about the content for that? Well, that's all a different topic. We're obviously here in the United States, and the typical visitor is going to be thinking along the lines of top to bottom and left to right. So when you organize your website, keep these concepts in mind as to where you want to put links and orient your website. Typically, upper left. If you see here, upper left, there's Google. You're going to find the icon, the logo. And here's another website. Go to the design of Amazon. Upper left, there's the logo. Navigation across the top, and just you know they also have navigation across the side and the left. Scroll down. It's scrollable, and let's see how their site responds to responsive design. Let's see how they do. Let's go to the top and watch what they do. See if the design is responsive. You can see the design is responding. It gets to a point where it doesn't scroll anymore. That's an image see the image, they're not going to go any further than right there. That's the extent of their design. We can try that, what we did before in Google Chrome, to see how it responds to a small design. I resized it. So that website doesn't respond so much as the one where I work. You remember where I worked? It was resizing. There was probably 4 or 5 different settings of content. So heat map, that's one thing to keep in mind. The heat map here. Another thing is if you're wanting to get some ideas, some inspiration, here's a link. This happens to be one of those online websites that creates these templates that automatically generate. Just give you the link here. And you can look over that and see some examples of different designs that you might like. And I also wanted to, that's just a Wix site. So if you like some of these designs, you can, these are portfolio designs, different portfolios. So you can think about how you might want to put your navigation and how you want to use images. You could have a single image that is your background. Your portfolio pages could be scrollable left and right, for example. So this is just for some inspiration. Now, there's another website that I wanted to tell you about. It's called the Css Zen Garden. Another place you can go for some inspiration for designs. There's a link for you. Now, I like talking about this Css Zen Garden when we talk about design, because I want to impress upon you how effective the usage of what we call cascading style sheets, and we're not going to go into the detail of that, but I just want to convey to you how effective you can be with just using what is called CSS Design. So let me explain to you what this is. this is a website that allowed other designers come up with these different designs. So here, I'll give you this link that I just clicked on the view all designs. So when you go about designing your portfolio, there's lots of ways of approaching that topic, the topic of your portfolio. The interesting thing about this website is that each of these designs has the same HTML coding underneath, but through the usage of color and images and font, they changed up the design to be something completely different. So the content that you see here, all the words that you can see, all those words is the same identical content that you will find on this web page. Completely different design, different colors, different usage of fonts, different navigation, completely different navigation, but the words are exactly the same. Different navigation, how it's done. And here, once again, the HTML underneath, if I looked at under the hood and I did a right click, view page source, this HTML would be exactly the same, except for this line right here, which is pointing to a different file. And that's where the customization is happening. So the point that I'm trying to, oops, I went too far. The point that I'm trying to make with this is the power of using design concepts that, regardless of the content underneath. So each of these, again, have the exact same content of HTML. The only thing that's different is their usage of graphics, fonts, and images, fonts, and color. That's how these designers have taken this on. So I want you to take the takeaway from this is that being designers, you have an incredible amount of power to affect the design simply through the usage of images, of color, and of fonts. Does anybody have any anything to add to that? And again, my goal here is to just impress upon you how the content itself can be consistently the same, and you don't not so lost in the HTML coding, but becoming very good at the design, the user interface design. You can end up creating some very unique things. And this website has actually 218 different web designs that they differ only in the user interface design. The content is the same as far as the words go. So there's 218 here. If you click here, you can see there's an additional 1,039 different designs of individuals who took this task on, where they created a different design and leaving the HTML the same. So to go back to the home page, right here, it says, if you want to participate in this, you download the HTML file, and that's the file that stays the same. It's this file, the CSS file, that you would customize, and you create your own images and so on. So that's all I wanted to go into on that. There's one more thing that I want to introduce you about design, and let me bring up Dreamweaver here. So to run Dreamweaver, you can do Command Space and type in Dreamweaver. So I bring this up just to kind of introduce a little bit of what Dreamweaver offers in the realm of design. So File, New, and brings up this dialog right here. And if you click on blank page, I want you to understand what Dreamweaver is providing to you. Here, if you click on blank page, again, I just did a file new. This is the new document dialog. Click on blank page, click here. If you click on each of these, what they're giving you here is a thumbnail view of this particular design. And in this thumbnail view, they're acting as though it's being shown in a browser. And this would be just the browser controls. That's not your website. That's just the controls that would come from the browser. And in this area here would be one column, fixed and centered. Now, what it means by fixed is that the width left to right is not dynamic. So this would not be a responsive design, because as I would bring down the size of the display, it would stay fixed. So that's the simplest example of a website design, the one column fixed centered. The next most simplest concept of a different type of website design is where you have a one column fixed there in the middle, but you add a header up there at the top and a footer down here at the bottom. So this is different than the previous one, because the previous one did not have a header and footer in the design. It just had the one single page scrollable top to bottom. So this is the next in the progression of complexity of website designs. This would be the next one. Now let's go to the third one here. This one is like the first one, but the thing that's different, it does not have a header and footer, as you can see. The thing that's different here is that it's liquid. Now it's represented by this loop-de-loop here. And what that means is the content will dynamically proportion itself based upon the width. Then I said width, the width of the display. So this is kind of like a responsive design, because if we bring down the size, the content would rewrap and repaint and you know, a typical design. Let's go to a web page. What haven't we been to? Let's go to Yahoo, for example. And let's watch that design. Okay, here's a design. It's a little more complex. We haven't yet gotten to this one here. And that is, we have left navigation, right navigation, scrollable. But let's see what it does with the width here. See, it stopped right there. The width went so far, it stopped right there, and there, it stopped. It stopped getting smaller. So now as I continue to go smaller, it doesn't get any smaller. So there is a certain point where it's still fixed. This idea that I was just going over with this design here of Dreamweaver, this one here, this would continue to wrap and scroll and accommodate a smaller and smaller dimensions. So let me go quickly. I'll go through these other designs. These are just base designs that come with Dreamweaver. There's the liquid one. Left to right is liquid, margin to margin, but it adds a header and footer. So that's one different than this one, because this one is small. And so, sorry about that. And let's see, this one here, 2 columns, left to right, and fixed. And this is fixed. So but we have a left column thing here. So that's fixed, 2 columns. All right, so here's one, 2 column fixed. So there's 2 columns, but it's fixed, and it's got top and bottom side header and footer. 2-column fixed right sidebar. 2-column fixed right sidebar, header and footer. These are all different, just different designs. Give you some food for thought on how you would like to approach yours. 2-column liquid left sidebar. 2-column liquid header left sidebar, header and footer. 2-column right sidebar. 2-column liquid right sidebar, header and footer. 3-column fixed. 3-column fixed header and footer. 3-column liquid. It will retain the 3 columns, but it will also dynamically do those. And we don't need to worry about these here. Those are done in HTML5. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you regarding the what Dreamweaver comes, the designs that come with Dreamweaver. I'm not saying use this tool to create your design that we're working on, but I am saying these are like generic. These are just food for thought to give you some different ideas and bring in the concept of different layouts that come into play. By the way, for what it's worth, the interesting thing about these layouts is that as Dreamweaver then manages the content completely. For example, let's try 2-column. Let's go liquid, 2-column left sidebar, header and footer. Let's try this one here. So I click create. Now we haven't gone over to Dreamweaver. That's not for until later weeks, but there's what is called a code view and a split view, where we have code on this side, and then we have the rendering over here. So don't worry about this. This is the HTML code. I'm just going to click on the design view, so that kind of covers up the fact that there's actually HTML. And so here's an example of what the layout, this is a sample layout, would look like. If you're interested in taking advantage of this, I definitely can work with you on that if you're interested. But this would be links here, navigation links. You put your logo up in this area and so on. And this would be content. So when you go to another web page, the interesting thing is that Dreamweaver will actually manage that so that it will retain the logo. It will have areas that are static, that don't change. Then this area would change from one web page to the next. We have things that will keep this area as a I can't remember the word that I'm looking for, but it has to do, I'm going to have to find it, but it's where this section can vary from one web page to the next, and whereas this section here, the navigation bar and the header, that would be the same. Okay, well, I've spoken long enough. We're almost out of time. Why don't I stop for a second and see if there are any questions that I haven't answered. Okay, Scotty asked a question, can we do both the sitemap and the wireframe all in one? Yes, definitely. No problem with that.
I had a quick question in regards to CSS.
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
If I'm remembering right, CSS is basically like your main page to basically tell all of your other HTML pages that you're going to keep the same fonts, the same colors, the same patterns, the same header, that kind of stuff, correct?
All right, well, let me just, everybody be patient with me. I'm going to jump ahead.
I'm jumping ahead again, aren't I? I'm sorry.
No. No, I don't want to discourage you, because frankly, I've got to accommodate the fact that you're more skilled because you've had more experience. So don't worry about you doing it. I just need to make sure everybody else doesn't worry that I expect them to understand what I'm about to explain to you. So that's all. Just need to get that. All right. So this is for Sarah and anybody else who's watching the recording who understands how CSS works. CSS in this case right here has been embedded right inside, right? You can find it right here inside the HTML. Can you see that? And it goes on and on and on and on and on until right to there. Okay, so I don't know if you asked that question, but question number one is, where is the CSS found? Well, in this design, it's built, they put it right inside the HTML file. Okay, you see it there within the style tag. All the rest is just strictly HTML content. So that's where you find that. Now, it doesn't have to live right here within the, inside the HTML file. You can separate it out. And for example, I think I have one right here. Let me see if I can bring this up. See, this is I actually downloaded one of those designs from Css Zen Garden, and here you can see that the CSS tag, the CSS is not here. But look right there. See that? Has been separated out and put into its own file. So if I want to see that CSS, I need to click see here, click on that file, and there's the CSS. So instead of embedding it right inside the HTML file, now I have it in a separate file. The nice thing for putting CSS out in its own file is that then all your web pages can just include that one file. And if you need to make any changes to CSS, just change it into one file, and it will impact the entire website. Okay, are you with me so far?
I understand it. I just didn't know if other people, since you touched base on CSS, actually understood what it was for.
Okay, good. All right, well, let me just show you now what the CSS does. CSS will take different HTML tags and reference them. Now, this is not HTML that we're looking at. These are actually HTML tags. So the HTML we find over here in the HTML, and oops, I just jumped here. What happened? Oh, okay, so source code, there we go. So there, see that HTML tag right there? This instruction here, now I'm going to jump over to CSS. This instruction right there, that is talking about that tag. This CSS instruction is talking about this tag right there, body tag. This one here, there's body. So what this says is, within this tag, I want you to put cell padding or padding to 0, margin to 0, so there's no margin. Here's a CSS instruction that says change the color to that, change the background to that, select this font family, select this font size. Here we have all anchor tags have this color, that's the A. Remember I talked about anchor tag? So if we have any anchor tags over here, oops, I keep going to the wrong one. If we have any anchor tags here, then they will have certain characteristics. So the CSS, the value of the CSS is where you actually separate content from the design of your website. And here is, if the anchor tag has been visited, what color should the link turn to? If you're just hovering over the anchor tag, what color should that be when you're hovering over it? Or if you have clicked on it, the focus. So this is giving kind of like the user interface behavior. And this is not HTML. This is all done in CSS. And this is how the designers of the Css Zen Garden website, that's how they were able to make up all these different designs. What they've done is they have just come up with different values in this area. And they've come up with different instructions. The header itself has all these characteristics. H1 tag, H2 tag, all of those, and so on and so forth. We haven't talked about that. The H1 tag is like a heading tag, and H2 tag is for a heading 2 tag, so on. Just so you understand, I'm almost done with this. I just want to go over one more thing, and that is, I think I have Microsoft Words up still, or no? All right, I'm going to finish here really quick with this one thing. Yeah, I just, James just mentioned that you can point to different CSS tags. That's true. You don't have to have just one CSS file. really quickly, what I just went over there with this H1, see that H1 and H2? All this is doing is defining a style for heading. For example, over here in Microsoft Word, you see this? Heading 1. Let's see, heading 1. That's a style. See that? Heading 2. Different size font. And then let's, so all we're doing in HTML is doing some, not only are we doing the content, but we're also specifying things like size of font, the font you use, the color, and so on. So that's what can be done in CSS, and that's how you can extract the design of your website away from the content, because the content right here is the same in all those designs. So you separate out doing the all this styling information and all the, again, we're way advanced, so let me back up now and just say all we have to worry about today is just this wireframe design. So hopefully you've got some ideas on how to create that. You have a way to have some ideas on the different types of fundamental designs that are out there. You have some ideas on templates that you can go use, and so on and so forth. So if you have any questions, feel free to stay. And thank you very much. It's just after 9. I apologize for going over a little bit. Thank you again for coming tonight, and let me know if there's anything you need. All right. Thanks, everybody. Scotty and Sarah, are you good? Scotty's good.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I think I've understand it all.
Awesome. Thanks very much for helping me out tonight, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Thanks for answering my questions. I'm sorry that I got ahead on things.
No, please don't feel. I want you to ask those questions, okay?
It's just been like 8 years since I've done coding, and so it's kind of rusty, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I haven't touched it since then. So like I understand a lot of the basics and stuff, but because I haven't touched it, I just want to make sure I'm understanding it, or at least remembering it like I understand it.
Yeah. Yeah, please don't hesitate to ask.
The other thing we may want to touch on is, like you said with the CSS or doing the basic HTML, is having, and I know it's advanced, but if somebody decides to put a background on their image or on their website, to have it be repetitive to where it scrolls and it doesn't look like a horrible pattern.
Yes, that's a good point.
Because I know if you use a certain pattern background, if you don't have it scroll efficiently and repeat the pattern, then you're going to get blocks.
Yep. Yeah, we'll go over that. That's a good point.
Okay. So this week's just the basic foundation. Next week, we'll start getting into the coding and all that, correct?
Next week, yeah. I'll double check, but yeah, we're going to start getting into how you take your design and then begin to implement in code.
Now with Dreamweaver, are we using mostly the pattern or the templates that are already in there, or are we doing hard coding as well, some hard coding?
Well, I'm going to ask the Associate Dean. I do know that she wants us to use Dreamweaver, so I just want to make sure that I'm on track with that. As far as those designs, those templates that are built in, they're actually fairly complex when you get in looking at the code. So I'm going to be starting people from scratch so that they can have just a basic design using div tags.
Oh, okay. That's why I was asking, is because I've never used Dreamweaver, and for me, it's one of those, once they make a lot of the basic coding, to go in there and try to modify it, if you don't know what you're doing, you can totally get frustrated and screwed up on it.
Yeah.
That's been part of my problem with some of the, like the Wix and the different pre-made layouts already. Like I know what I want to do, but because it's so limited, if you don't pay for it full price, you can't do what you want to do to it.
Right. I agree.
So that's why I thought I'd ask and see, because like I said, I know to do website coding from the back end, it's time consuming and hard and very detailed. And to shove it all in 4 weeks is huge. To build a website from the bottom up from scratch takes more than 4 weeks.
I
Took me
agree.
2 years. So I thought I'd ask.
Yep, that sounds good. All right, are you good?
I'm good. Thank you, sir.
All right, take care, Sarah.